Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. And Into the Afroverse is where we're taking Black folks into the future. If you tuned in to the last show, you were introduced to Yvette Kendall, and we were having a great conversation about one of her earliest works, her first work, the God Maps, the God Maps, and want to reintroduce her today. Yvette Kendall is a American novelist. She is multi-talented, as we found out. She's originally from the South Side of Chicago, but now calls Atlanta, Georgia her home. And as I just mentioned, she's the author of the God Maps Volume 1, which is part of a whole genre that she created called biblical futurism. And we're going to go back to that a little bit, just in case you missed that description, because I think that that is fascinating. The genre has attracted a whole new audience to this unique category. She's a creator and screenwriter of a new social justice horror thriller called North, and we're going to get into that today. Yvette Kendall has other titles that are horror and other short stories, other short creepy stories, Imagination, My Dreams Painted with AI, A Zombie for Mommy, A Werewolf for Mommy, and also, I guess, what does he usually have? A French version? My French is horrible, so I don't even know how to pronounce it. And we also have Delilah Gives Sci-Fi a Try. And with that, we welcome back the multi-talented Yvette Kendall. How you doing?
Hello, I'm so glad to be back. This has been wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much. So, like I said, last time we had you on, we were talking about the book, The God Maps, and you were explaining biblical futurism, how you are looking at religion through a science fiction lens. Is that a good way of describing it?
Yes, yes. The biblical futurism basically means to give sci-fi explanations to biblical allegory. So, because there's so many things in the Bible that is not explained, it is what it is type of conversation. God said, "Don't do it," so
Right.
is nothing else to say. So I live in the gray. So when you live in the gray, you want to figure out, okay, I understand his rules are his rules, but what what is the technical issue or reason why we can't do this or do that, or why this happens if that happens? Cause and effect. So looking at it from a science lens, you want to, you want that empirical information, something you can digest other than I'm your parent, do it because I said so type of understanding. So that is what biblical futurism does. It gives an explanation utilizing a sci-fi vehicle to biblical allegory.
Excellent. And once again, I'm just fascinated by that description and by this genre that you've created. Is this applicable, would you say this could be applicable to other religions, or is this primarily like a Judeo-Christian approach in terms, I know it's biblical in the title, but do you think that this would be applicable to other people's religions or even spiritual beliefs?
Yeah, it is very applicable. Usually when you do something, you do it from your vantage point
Right.
first, and then you branch out. So I believe, matter of fact, I even speak of things like that. I'm glad, you asked a very good question. There is a segment in the God Maps where they talk about why Muslims pray the way that they do, because it could be a type of equation when they come to pray at a certain time, when they take off their shoes, when they bend their knee, when they turn to the left or turn to the right, or when they make a certain sound. All these little motions and movements could be an equation that is unlocking a connection to God.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Uh, so you talked about the God maps last time you were here.
Yes.
What is this latest work from you? Is it north of the north?
It is just north.
Just north. So give us a little bit of insight into that north. What's going on?
Okay. So when I get my information, I always God talks to me through innovation.
Mhm.
So I will get flashes of information that I then sew together for a discernible concept. So with North, I saw a compass. I saw the letter N. I saw the North Star. I saw people driving north and the North Pole. I saw Santa Claus. I saw the north side of Chicago. I'm from the south side, which is typically what they would consider the poor side. And the north side is where all the rich white people
Right.
lived on. So I was saying to myself when all these images flashed in my head, I said, Black people have a different experience with North, the concept of it, the word, what it means. And then the Great Migration flashed that just the word, the Great Migration. Um, the phrase the Great Migration. So I sat down after I got all these flashes and I started writing a story. And the story is pretty much about a man named Winston Gale that lives in Atlanta. He has an Asian, a Chinese fiance, and he is a journalist that writes for a liberal Atlanta magazine newspaper type of outfit. And it is in 2015. And the slogan, Make America Great Again, is really, really, really picking up steam. And of course, our counterparts are very excited about this Make America Great Again phrase. And the character Winston always just grumbled whenever he heard it. He felt something visceral whenever he heard it. So he decided to write an article of what MAGA really means, especially to people of color. So he wrote this article. He took it live. It went all over the world. And this magazine outfit that he was working for, he had no idea that it was turning conservative. They were leaning into Fox News
Right.
and they were leaning into the former president, what he was getting ready to be doing. So he was harassed, physically threatened, and he was fired. So before all of that, he wound up telling his fiance, I'm sorry, after all that, he was telling his fiance that he was then offered a job at a Black magazine newspaper situation in Chicago. And he was telling his fiance that, hey, my great grandparents was part of the Great Migration and they went missing. And he said not only did they go missing, he said something like 6 million Black people migrated from different states in the South, going to different states in the North. And I think about 300,000 of those Black people went missing
Wow.
and never to be heard of again. No one knows what happened to them, just nothing. They just disappeared off the face of the earth. So he said, Winston, I want to take the backwoods way to Chicago. I want to take this trip that would normally take 13 hours. And I want to take the backwoods. I want to stop at different, hotels and be in Airbnbs. And I want to possibly see what these people that could not travel the main road during the day or during the night, they would have had to travel incognito through the woods so they wouldn't get accosted by the KKK and just other wayward white people. I want to see what they may have bumped into that would have caused them to go missing. And I want to write about it. So he talked her into doing this. And when I tell you the things that they saw and experienced, it's still shaking me to this day. And I wrote it.
Right.
Uh, you're not even ready for what they bumped into while they were going the backwoods to where making it to Chicago. So That's what North is about. He made his own microcosm of the Great Migration in our modern day to see the horrors that still lay before people of color and the traps that are still set. And a lot of it is supernatural, a lot of it is very natural, and some of it combined together. And I thought the vehicle of horror was the perfect thing to use to tell this story of something that is so historical.
Right, right. Now, I'm gonna tell you something. We talked, before we did the show, and when you gave the description to North, I got so caught up in what you were saying that I forgot that you said this was a story. I'm not kidding you. And when we were done talking, I was like, who is this brother that they let go from? from- And I started to look this guy up because I wanted to know.
You're crazy.
I kid you not. I was looking for this, and then I recalled, oh, this must have been the story because it was so fascinating, and it spoke to me in such a way that's like, oh, this got to be real. So I
Uh,
went looking. So that's
mhm.
the story. That's the synopsis of the story. That
Yeah,
is incredible. Um, from your work,
yeah.
God Maps and the other stories that I mentioned in your introduction, as well as this book, what do you want us to learn from you? What do you feel like you are, perhaps maybe your mission? What is it that you're teaching us? What is it that we should learn? What is it you want us to learn from your work?
I want to peel back the veil that we exist in every day because there's always something behind the wallpaper.
Gotcha.
It's always, and I think that we're so just like, oh, it's there. So is it, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If it's not hurting anybody, don't touch it. And it's information that we are not looking at because the veneer has always been.
Right.
So that's either with religion, that's with social justice, that's with relationships, that's what is always more. We just have to move out of our comfort zones. And I think that's kind of, I feel like I'm on a mission to get people to see, just like, we're talking about the Great Migration. And whenever I tell people 6 million people took the trip, and 300,000 people just went missing. Where did these people go?
Right.
I mean, like, how are we not concerned
Right.
about these people just gone missing and have never been heard of again? And we're dealing with a time where there was no technology. So if your parents say, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to Chicago and we're going to get things set up and we're going to get things taken care of, and we'll send for you."
Mhm.
How would you, as a child or a sister or brother, reckon with that, because they don't even know where they're going?
Right.
So if they never made it there, you can't go, oh, well, they stayed at this hotel, they took this route, they spent the night over here. You know nothing. They walked out the door and that's the end, and you don't know where to check. You don't know who to talk to.
Right.
You don't know what their destination was. So that's eerie to me that you have all these people's loved ones and relatives that are just missing, and you have no way to track whatever happened to them.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And I mean, that in and of itself is horror.
Yeah,
So I can see how that would fit, so well into this genre. So
yeah.
if you're just joining us, this is Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones. And Into the Afroverse, we're taking Black folks into the future. And once again, we're joined by Yvette Kendall, and we're talking North. Um, so I get the inspiration behind it, you saying that it came to you and so forth. What were your inspirations? growing up that you feel like that puts you on this path to becoming a writer? Because we talked about before, you said writing was something you've always done. You just didn't see it as like maybe your gift or the thing that you should be doing. But who were the people or what experiences do you feel kind of guided you in this direction?
Well, it's hard for me to say what my inspiration is to becoming a writer because, again, I did not know.
Mhm,
But my inspirations for wanting to be better intellectually
mhm,
were my grandmother. Her name is, matter of fact, she's in my in North, the book. I made her a character. Her name is Marguerite Turner. She used to have a TV show with Don Cornelius when, and I had no idea. It's like she would leave the house and go do a radio show, and then no, I'm sorry, she had a radio show with Don Cornelius,
mhm.
and she would go do this radio show, and she would come home like it was nothing. And I didn't find out until after her death, kind of where she was going. And she, she had a degree from Northwestern in Chicago, and she, was a radio announcer at her church. And she had a sister. Her name was Glendora Stokes. And I kid you not, I just found out on the day after Christmas, what, a few days ago,
Mhm.
that she was a some type of very, very well-known gospel singer that used to hang out with Martin Luther King. And, just all kinds of, I've learned so much, just so I'm motivated by my ancestors because they did so much despite what was going on in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and things like that. And then I grew up in Hyde Park, which I lived near the University of Chicago. And as a child, my mother worked at a hospital, and the University of Chicago was a couple miles away. And whenever I got out of school at 3:30, she wouldn't be off of work until I think 5 o'clock. And she would say, "Hey, go to my boyfriend's bookstore and hang out with him until I get off work." And he worked at a bookstore at the University of Chicago. And I would walk all the way over there, and I would get to the University of Chicago, and I would see these huge 20-foot medieval castles doors that was attached to these medieval castles, which is the University of Chicago. And one day I just walked in, and I started walking through the halls, and everyone is gone for the day except for this man. And he was in one of the classrooms, and he had on a lab coat, he had on long black rubber gloves, and he was standing there doing something. And I darted my head in, I darted my head out, and he apparently saw me. He says, "Come in." And I went in, and he said, "Let me show you something." And he blew up a balloon, and he took a canister, the top off a canister, and smoke was coming out. And he put the balloon in the canister, and the balloon shrank down to nothing. And then he lifted it back out, and it reinflated. And I was in awe with science
Right.
from that point forward. And I knew science was the way. I didn't know how it was the way.
Right.
So on top of having an experience with my grandmother and my aunt, and them, the both of them being such prestigious, important people in their own right, and then having this experience with science, and being in this multicultural area of Hyde Park. I mean, I would walk past Muhammad Ali's house. I will walk past Minister Farrakhan's house, and the house that the Obamas owned and lived there until they got into the White House. I used to go to the house every weekend. It used to be a girls' home, and it's all these little Black girls that were orphans. And I would go on that porch, and I would play with them and just finish my walk. And that's the very house that Barack Obama and Michelle Obama owned and lived in to this day. So I just, all around me was little pebbles, for me to follow
Right.
to make it to kind of where I am today. So,
No, that is incredible. It's like and all of us, we're the sum total of our
yeah.
experiences. And I like that you were able to pull from that and create the things that you've created. So What's next? So what's going to happen with North in terms of, so this is a finished book. This is out now.
Well, it's strange because North started out as a screenplay. I wrote it as a movie.
Okay.
And I was talking to people about making it into a movie. Remember, I started writing it the middle of November 2022, and I was done writing it the middle of January 2023. So just what, 2 months?
Right.
And then by the time I got it all cleaned up and everything, the writer's strike happened.
Gotcha.
And I didn't know when it was going to end. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to take this story and write it into a reverse adaptation of the screenplay and write it into a novel. And that's how it became a book. So now I am back at it talking to people about turning it into a TV series, which is the last conversation that I had. So I have a screenplay, I have a teleplay, which is, for the TV series, and I have a book. So I've covered all bases.
No, that's great. That's great. Um, what's next? So like in terms of, I know you like North is still brand new-ish in terms of where you're going with it. What other ideas do you have? Do you have any other upcoming projects you want to talk about? What is next for Yvette Kendall?
Well, you mentioned that the God Maps is a trilogy. So I started writing book two for the God Maps 3 days after I was done with book one. And then I just stopped because I knew I would learn more things. So I need to get back to writing the follow up to the God Maps, which is volume two. And I need to finish the Revelation activation, which is about a third done. And then I have several children's books because I write those too, that I need to do volumes 3 and 4 of the Somebody for Mommy series for my children's book. So yeah, and I have other new things that I want to write as well. So yeah.
So you don't have writer's block.
Ever, never. I don't even, when people say that, I just have to laugh
Right.
internally. God talks to me all the time. He gives me, look, I have so much information for writing, is like fodder at this point. So never have writer's block.
That is incredible. That is awesome. So let me ask you this, to bring everything that you're talking about into contemporary times. Are you inspired by what you see going on in the world today? Because with your work, you're talking, like you said, about social justice, there's religion, spirituality, and all these things. The times that we're in right now, and I'm calling this, I'm listening to you. I'm going to say a couple of years from now, folks are going to be looking at you the way we look at Octavia Butler and the way that she was able to tap into and predict what was coming. And she was so in tune with the world in which she lived that, we look back at her work. She called and she predicted so many things that are currently going on. I get the same sense from speaking with you and seeing your work. Um, are you encouraged by, discouraged by, what are your feelings in terms of your work and how it fits in today's world and the world of the future?
I am discouraged by what is being allowed to happen to our world, to our food, to our everyday life, and how we're being almost exercised out of humanness. Um, so I'm almost afraid to write what I want to write because people are so quick to cancel.
Right.
However, if I write it, I write it, I wear it proudly. You can look at the cover of North and tell you I'm not afraid
Mhm.
to talk about whatever it is I'm talking about. But it is important for people of color to not get lost in the bandwagon of over empathizing things we know that are wrong
Right.
for for incorporating things in our world and in our system that we know that are wrong. We have to decide to stand up to something. And that's one of the things I have to stand up for things that I know are right. And I have to stand against things that are wrong, despite what I may lose. And if we want to see ourselves in the future in any shape or form that is not impoverished or enslaved, we have to be those type of people to stand up and speak out against, and we have to protect uh, our people. So it is important. So my writing is heavily, even though it looks, with the Great Migration and stuff, I went all the way back to come forward.
Right.
So yeah.
No, and that speaks to the whole point of being a writer, and it speaks to the importance and the significance of history. So I totally get it. It's not about what happened, but it's about using what happened as a guide
Yeah.
moving forward. So I definitely feel you on that. Um, Once again, believe it or not, we're coming up on the close.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it goes so quickly. Um, so let me ask you this. Have you looked at expanding into, I remember you mentioned something about comic books and so forth. Because I'm assuming with the God maps, given its length, and you mentioned the denseness in terms of science. I know that you're working on children's books, as you mentioned earlier. Is there any way, shape, or form that you're looking to take the concepts presented in God maps and even North and making it accessible to younger audiences?
I had not thought about, only because of the subject matter, inside those books. It's hard to say what you need to say and get the point across and have it softened for younger children.
Gotcha.
So that's something, like I say, the only reason I write children's books, because one of the people that asked me to write comic books for them, he said that he was at a comic book convention and they did zombies,
Mhm.
and the children kept trying to come up and buy their comic books, and he had to say, no, this isn't for children.
Gotcha.
And while he was saying that, I had come up with the concept for my first children's book, which is a zombie for mommy. And I wrote it the next day, and I got an artist. I think I was done with the publishing and everything within 30 days. It's just, when once I get that information, I move very quickly. So the books that I do write for children, I call it cotton candy horror.
Okay.
Is scary enough not to be scary.
Gotcha.
So so yeah. So no, you gave me something to think about. Kind of giving them this information while they're younger, as far as North and the God map, so they can kind of get tempered with what they will read later in life. So that's a great idea, actually.
Excellent. Well, I'm taking credit for that one. All right. So, real quick, one more time, because like once again, after this description of North, and we talked about the God maps, your children's books, and all these other things you're working on, how can folks find you? How can they find the book, and how can they find you personally?
Okay, so if you want to find the books, they are available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. You can actually go there and just put in Yvette Kendall. That's YvetteKendall. And when you do that, because I'm the author, they'll pull up every book that they have I've ever written. So you can go to these venues, or you can go to Amazon and put the book name in if you want. And if you want to find me, I am on social media. Facebook, Yvette Kendall Scribe. I'm on TikTok, Yvette Kendall or Sci-Fi CEO. I am on I am on LinkedIn under Yvette Kendall, the Scribe, and Instagram is my publishing company, Stravard Lux. Is the handle where you can find information about me there, or you can Google Yvette Kendall, and it will give you all kind of information on how to find me and email me or follow me.
Excellent. Well, once again, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for coming and doing 2 segments with us. Really love your energy. Really intrigued by this latest work, North, as well as all the other work you've done. So, folks that are out there listening, you got your marching orders. You know how to find her. You know how to find the book. Go out there and get a copy. 1 minute. Any final words for us?
No, like I said in the last segment, you're never too old to start something new. So if you want to be a writer, if you want to be an artist, a painter, whatever it is that you want to do, just start doing it and let everything start coming to you. Once you build it, they will come. Do not be afraid. If you don't know how to do something, Google it, YouTube it, you can figure it out, and you never know what you're afraid to do may bring you the greatest joy that you are missing in your life. So don't be afraid, just do it. Like
Awesome.
nice.
Thank you so much. And the door is open if you ever want to come back, talk about your latest work, what's going on with North, what's going on with God Maps. The invitation is open. I'm inviting you to come back, talk about all of those things or anything else you'd like to share with us, because this is just fascinating to me. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for another episode of Into the Afroverse. And I'm your host, William Jones. And remember, Into the Afroverse is where we're taking Black folks into the future. And for those of you that are looking to support Into the Afroverse, go to the website afrofuturismnet.com and you can find out how to support us there. And of course, you can find me on social media under Afrofuturism Network, and you can find old episodes of Into the Afroverse on the Afrofuturism Network channel on YouTube. So that'll do it. Thanks once again for joining us. Thanks to our guest, Yvette Kendall. And folks, have a good day. Take care, and a special shout out to Mr. Duke Productions for producing today's episode. Take care.